titled Embracing Change, Reinvention as a Pathway to Growth. And when I heard that, I started really thinking about identity and these layers of identity that create this quality, this richness, and think about these textures and flavors that will relate to our conversation in just a moment. My name is Carly. I am hosting this conversation. I'm also the founder of Q Consulting, which provides one-on-one narrative strategy support for founders at the intersection of tech and social impact. And thinking about identity, what I really am excited about to talk with Alicia here is that I found with what Alicia has done from her background and her business, those flavors and textures I talk about, she has used to develop a business that serves people and brings joy. And Alicia, I want to turn it over to you. If you could introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about your story from where you started and that bridge to get to where you are today with your company, Lavender and Truffles.
Thank you, Carly. My name is Alicia Liu. I'm the founder of Lavender and Truffles plant-based ice cream. We have a pop-up right here around the corner, right next to Grand Blanco. And yeah, it's been now 2.5 years, roughly, coming up to 3 in August. I started my career in luxury fashion about 25 years ago. And I worked for big houses like Prada, Dolce Gabbana, LVMH for the first 10 years of my career. Haphazardly started there. Wanted to be an artist, a painter, and my dad said, absolutely not, and get a job. So I actually found this internship with a fashion magazine by way of graphic design. And that led me to a job at Prada because one of the editors went to become a PR director there. So I followed her over there, and that just snowballed into a full-on career in fashion. But every luxury house runs the same strategy. It's just musical chairs. So you go from one company to another company. It's the same ball game and same team. You're just moving different fields. So after some time, I wasn't learning anything new, and I needed a change, and I wanted to evolve. And so I went into the contemporary world, where premium denim became like fast on the scene, and I want to learn more about volume strategies. Same industry, just a different strategy. It is slightly different, and it kind of opened my eyes on volume, scaling, and the game is how to move your inventory as quickly as possible across the US. That's the name of the game. And then through that, it just kind of snowballed into the landscape has changed in retail. So you go from wholesale to retail. Digital was fast on the scene, and everyone's trying to get into the e-commerce game. And I always want to be on the cusp of something new. And so I went to go work for Amazon. They just happened to want to launch a standalone site, a fashion site based out of New York. So sometimes it's perfect timing. And I would say it was going to university to learn about e-commerce. What I've learned there in the 2.5 years would probably take me about 8 to 10 years to learn at an e-commerce department in a fashion house. So it was fast and furious. And when I was there, I didn't appreciate it until after I left. So now being out of it, and when you're inside, you can't see what's happening, but when you're on the outside looking in, you can actually see the benefits. So I have mad respect on how they do things now, and I understand why they're so successful. I have regrets that I left a little too soon. Didn't get the full vested, but it actually helped me grow and evolve into other positions, and then I went completely 180 and went to go work for a heritage company in New York called Century 21 Department Stores. I don't know if you know it, but it's an institutional kind of retail space downtown. They do off-price, and they were looking to kind of turn the company inside out, upside down, and really kind of rebirth and rebrand. So that was a great challenge to work for a heritage company and be part of the change management team, which actually led me to a tech position out here in LA, a fashion tech job with Flip. I don't know if you ever heard about it, but we didn't get the funding, and COVID hit 6 months before I got here. So they sent everyone home and just wait it out. We'll call you right back. Of course, it took 2.5 years, and by that time, I started working with smaller companies, consulting, and a lot of cooking. So I actually have a background in cooking. My family comes from a family of restaurateurs and chefs. My dad was a chef. My uncles were all restaurant owners, but they didn't want me and my sister to go into food because it wasn't a great lifestyle. But I have a passion for food, and I love cooking. So we started cooking everything at home during COVID, including making ice cream. My daughter loves ice cream, and we would have a tub every week, so we decided to make it instead. And I didn't realize there was so much dairy and whole milk and heavy cream and sugar, because being Chinese, we don't grow up with a dairy in our diet. So I thought, this is a little bit too much. I think we can make you a healthier version. So I made it out of oat milk, and we came up with a recipe that was pretty good. And we started making it for friends, and friends of friends started to buy it. And then a cafe wanted to order it for their cafe, and then lo and behold, Erewhon got a hold of it. So, and they wanted to launch it fast and furious. So we got it up on the shelves in March 2021. And we did a little test for 6 months on new flavors, which was super successful. It was about 50% more than the rest on the shelf, so we kind of stuck out like a sore thumb. At the time, it was $15 a pint, while everything else was $9.99 or below. But being that they were on this cusp of becoming who they are today, we got very lucky, and we actually relaunched in August 2022 with a whole new branding that you see here. And it's been going ever since. We're in hotels, Viceroy, Proper Hotel. We're in a bunch of restaurants here on the west side, Kobe's, Awa, Shirube's, my favorite Japanese restaurant on 5th Street. Then we have our pop-up here. And right now we are in the middle of fundraising and taking the company to the next level.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
It's a lot of stuff.
I hear a lot of
when I hear it.
change and evolution at each step. And I hear a lot about, just kind of this exploration to find the next step and then to keep moving forward in that way. Something that stood out was you talk about, at the beginning, with your father, and then you moved into fashion to have that job. But it sounds like that creativity has always been kept alive, and that you found that, through your own family and now with this work. So can you speak a little bit to what that transformation was like for you? How did you embrace change enough to say, this feels good and I'm going to move in this direction when it comes to having a plant-based ice cream?
So I think part of embracing change is relatively innate for me. It's more about curiosity. It's more about learning. If I'm not learning something new, then I can't stay where I am. And you've got one camp will say you're moving and changing too much, and you're changing jobs too quickly, and it's not going to look great on your resume, and people think you're going to be jumping around. And it was that the first probably 15 years of my career, and I went after that pedigree resume that everyone else has. You start as an assistant, then you work your way to an executive, and then you become a wholesale director, then you become VP of wholesale, and then you become, commercial director. There's a path to a career in fashion. I'm sure it's similar to a lot of other industries, but I zigzagged my way through. And, I hopped around a lot because I was looking to learn as much as possible. For what? I didn't really have a goal. For me, it was just always the process. You know, I never really had an end goal, never thought about I want to be a VP or a CEO at a certain level or for this company. For me, it was always enjoying the process of it, and I didn't understand what I was doing until maybe 20 years later, when that is more acceptable. And I didn't really understand that until I got to Amazon, because Amazon is a relatively flat kind of organization, and you're on your own. And when I got there, it was very, very frustrating. I was like, what is going on here? Where's my leader? Where's my manager? Who's going to tell me what to do? Where's the training? But you're really on your own. Everyone there is an entrepreneur. And it took me some time to accept it, that I'm actually an entrepreneur myself. So I was fighting this process when I'm already in the process. So it took me, after I turned the corner there, I started to flourish more because I accepted learning the process. And that's how I led my career and my life after that, because I accepted who I am and I accepted the process of living it more than going after the end goal. I don't know if that makes sense. Does that make sense?
I think it makes a lot of sense.
So I think that the innate of being curious and wanting to constantly learn and explore has put me on this path, and I'm now at a place in my life, in my career, where I feel more confident making the change, and I never realized that I was constantly embracing the change. So now I advocate the change. When I manage teams and back in Century 21 and Amazon, and from Amazon onwards, it was always training my team to embrace the change and to kind of grow within their organization and not to be afraid of it. Because some people are afraid of change. You know, some people just want to sit where they are and enjoy, and that's okay. But if you want to evolve and you want to look further, I kind of advocate to kind of explore other areas and don't worry about looking back and don't worry about the pedigree resume. The path is yours, and you have to kind of, accept that process. Does that make sense?
It does. Okay. No, as you're talking, I'm thinking about this exploration process, and to me, that almost sounds like the little seeds of having an entrepreneurial spirit, is that continuous moving forward and figuring things out as you go and being curious. Has that something that has always been within you? Or are there aspects of maybe childhood or experiences that you had that kind of gave you, now reflecting, where you thought, I can see how I am moving through the world this way and why I have ended up doing the things that I've done in my career and that reinvention process?
I don't know. I don't know if anything early on kind of provoked me to do that. If I had to say, my father probably was the biggest impact. He was a tough person, but he was also kind of like an explorer and also wanted to do everything on his own. When I think about how he grew up and how he lived his process, it was quite different and unique compared to everybody else. But, growing up Asian, they always want to put you in a box. So he was always considered challenging as a child, challenging as a teenager, and he was sent to a monastery by my grandfather to kind of get control. But he was someone that wanted to explore as well. And I think I get that from him. And I think you have to accept the idea of going outside your box is okay. Not everyone will see it. That's okay, and everybody wants to put you in a box, but you have to have the confidence to be okay to like live out of the box. If I think about, my excuse when people ask me, well, you've done so much, you've jumped around a lot. And I usually say, I got one life to live on this planet, and I'm gonna go live it. And I'm gonna do as much as I can.
Exactly.
So.
No, so many things are coming to mind, but the thing that sticks out is this nonlinear path gives you perspective. When you are doing something that's different, or you are coming from a different sort of identity or these layers, it gives you this perspective that I would say in a workplace, there's an advantage to that, but also just in the way that you engage with other people. Because you're bringing that in, and it sounds like you were influenced by that, but you also have that yourself. And I think when I hear what your story and what you're saying, I'm like, oh, she's such an anomaly, and that's like such a beautiful thing, because you are able to move through your life, how you live your life, and know that there's not really an end goal. That's part of the path, and that's where the reinvention comes in. Does that track?
Yeah, I think my biggest, when people ask me, why I move around so quickly or why I do all these things, and I mean, it's just really just simple. I'm just living. This is my best analogy and the best way I can explain it. I went on this date, and it was a first-time date, and I was talking about my life and, what I've been doing, and he looked at me and he's like, so you're like the black sheep of the family? And when he said that, I was kind of taken back, and I was like, no. And I simply said, without even thinking about it, I'm like, no, I'm the pink sheep of the family. Just because I do things out of the box or out of the norm, or I go against the grain and I'm looking to do something disruptive, doesn't mean it's negative or I'm a rebel. It's just outside the box. It's just simple living.
Yeah, exactly. That's good. That's a good. Yeah. I was like, I'm gonna take that on my next date.
Yeah.
Thinking about, I want to talk about how this relates to. I was really fascinated with these flavors at Lavender and Truffles, and I see just all the story that you're talking about, this exploration in the flavor profiles themselves. And I know that you're using organic oat milk, you're using organic fruit, you're using organic herbs and spices. Can you talk to us a little bit about maybe that exploration process when it came to choosing what we're seeing up here and that you can purchase and taste at your shops?
Yes. I mean, I always thought if I'm going to start my own company, it would always be my way, and everything that I live and the philosophy that I live and how I want to launch it will always be a bit disruptive, a bit against the grain. So the flavor profiles, it's hard to say. It's a little bit of everything. I didn't want to have a vanilla, and I didn't want to have a chocolate in the collection. When we first launched an Air One, I'm like, I'm not doing that. You got plenty of chocolate and vanilla. But as you can see, it's in the collection. But it's different than everything else that's out there. So the classic vanilla is a classic vanilla, but I use real vanilla bean. Salted chocolate is just a chocolate with a little extra salt. Every chocolate does have some kind of saltiness to it. I'm just amping it up a little bit and just making it uniquely different. But the flavor profiles really started out as all Asian-inspired flavors. Because when I first started a collection, it was launching a line of Asian spices. And I wanted to educate people how to use spices in cooking, which then led to, why don't you make a spicy line of ice cream? And that's where the spices started in the collection. And, seeds is a certain form of spice, and black sesame and chocolate and vanilla are the top two flavors here in America. In Taiwan, black sesame and peanut are the top two ice cream flavors in Taiwan. And if you've ever had true black sesame ice cream from Taiwan, it's just amazing. So I wanted to create my own version here. And black sesame pounded down to a paste is like tahini, so that's called black tahini. Most of the flavors are inspired by traditional flavors that you see out there with a little bit of an Asian twist to it. And my number one flavor actually embraces my whole life, really, and it's called Metamorphosis. And that is really just coconut milk with butterfly pea flower. And I decided to make it a different name versus a direct flavor name, because as I've made it, I've seen the texture and the color transform just like a butterfly would. Being that it has butterfly pea flower, I decided to create kind of ethereal name for it. So it's called Metamorphosis, and it's now our number one flavor that we've trademarked as well, and that we're launching in partnership with the other creameries to have in their collection. So every flavor has a little story, Yeah.
No, as you're talking, I can see the butterfly tattoo that you have and the Metamorphosis, and I was like, I'm getting a feel for you, and it sounds like you have a lot of intention and depth that you bring to all of your products or anything that you do beyond this living. I want to know more about what does this experience feel like if someone walks into the shop and they are here, maybe they're looking to reinvent themselves, maybe they just want change for the day and they're like, I've never tried these flavors before, I'm at Erewhon, I'm shopping, I want something new. What feeling do you hope someone can walk away with when they are experiencing Lavender and Truffles?
We always say, ice cream makes people happy. There is a certain nostalgia of eating ice cream. Everyone remembers having their first ice cream cone or skipping down the street with their parents or that late night dessert and sweet treat. There's a certain nostalgia that you have having ice cream, and we want to bring that back to everyone. So our shop is a storefront. We call it a shop. We call it a pop-up. But we internally call it a showroom. So for us, it's the experience of having our ice cream, and we display it like a showroom would. So it's a tasting bar, and we have 8 flavors every week, and we rotate the flavors every Thursday for the whole weekend. Because our goal is really to have everyone, as many people to try as many flavors as possible. You're gonna have a different experience with every flavor, because that nostalgia of having, I remember I had that ice cream, that strawberry at this time, or the chocolate, or the rocky road. Everyone has some kind of nostalgic experience with ice cream, and we're looking to bring that back. Just simple living again. Like, I think when I first moved to LA, one of my teammates came to visit me, and we didn't really have a plan, so I picked her up at the airport, and after lunch, we went to Salt and Straw and had an ice cream cone, and we're just down the street, and it was a sunny day out, and we were just happy as a clam. We're like, how fun is this, just having an ice cream cone in our adulthood, just walking down, ocean. That's how simple life can be and how happy it can be.
Yes, very, very simple. And I think what you're sharing too is that what can inspire your next move, change, reinvention can be so simple that sometimes it's not this extremely big, for lack of a better word, just blundering of life that kind of shakes you up. It can be that moment of, oh, life can be like this. Now, how do I go make my life like this? I meant to ask this earlier. Your company's name is Lavender and Truffles. Can we know a little bit about the story to get to that name? What was that transformation like?
I had a supper club in New York. So I'm from New York, and I have a home upstate in Garrison. And when I wanted to get into food, I knew that I didn't want to open up a restaurant, and I didn't want to get into CPG, although I'm now in CPG. So I was like, I'll do something in between. I love entertaining. My friends love coming over to eat, and I thought maybe I'll make a career out of it. So I started a supper club upstate called Lavender and Truffles, lavender being fields, truffles being forest, being up there. I love always things that have like opposite attracts or juxtaposition of two different things. It's really a philosophy, way of living in Asian culture, the yin and yang. And that's why that philosophy carries into a lot of the recipes. Pairing ingredients that you would never think of pairing together, like ginger turmeric, or what else we have? Chocolate with matcha, although now it's pretty common. We have lychee with rose. We have peach with rhubarb. So just putting flavor profiles together that you normally don't put together, that's where the name initially originates.
That's interesting. I mean, and you're pulling. It sounds like you're always pulling from your life experiences, kind of crafting, shaping, molding, and then it turns into something new, and then it evolves from there, that's kind of what I'm taking away from everything that we've talked about. I want to know right now, what change are you embracing right now in your life as you're looking forward? What is happening that is part of your next steps in reinvention?
We are fundraising right now. Has anyone fundraised here?
Okay, a couple people.
Okay, don't do it. No, I'm kidding. It's hard, and it's a big process that I'm now in the thick of it, and there's actually no turning back at this point. So I've got a lot of advisors advising me, and it's a big beast of a project, something I've never ever done before, and but that doesn't scare me really because I love learning something new. At the end of the tunnel, I can safely say that I learned this entire process. Whether I'm going to succeed or fail is not really a thought at this point. It's just going through the process right now. I think that's my biggest change right now, but it's just learning something new. It's probably the biggest project I've ever done in my life so far. This company is definitely the most challenging project I've ever done to date, but it is the most close to heart and embodies like my entire life, from the flavors to the packaging to how we're gonna launch this business and strategically scale it, alongside of this fundraising process that I question, some of my advisors on why this has to be done this way, because I don't know if you want to agree, the one that's had fundraised before, it's kind of like made up numbers. So, but you just kind of go with it, and you have to be confident about your numbers that are not real.
Okay. No, that's I am not aware of a lot of what you're saying. So this is very interesting information, but it sounds like you're in a space where you are accepting things as they come, but also learning and getting prepared for this next step.
Mm-hmm. It's a big one. And does anybody know retail math? Okay. That's another process. Previously in the retail world, it's a made up mathematical numbers of how to do business. So I kind of equate this fundraising process to that similar process. It's a mathematical equation that was kind of formed by this industry, that this is the way to go. But there are certain areas that I can take a unique spin, that's going to be, again, my way of doing it. So it's going to be a lot of poking and prodding on the process and see what works.
That's a good segue, thinking about process and what we've heard here for the last, I don't know how many minutes. I do want to be able to turn it over to the audience for just a little Q&A. Does anyone out there here with us have a question that they want to ask? Yeah? Yeah. What's your name? Victor. Okay, Victor, first question. Thank you.
Thanks for sharing. I have a technical question about the ice cream making process. Do I
Sure.
understand it correctly that you don't use dairy?
Correct. Everything is dairy-free.
Dairy-free, okay. So how is the physics and chemistry different if you're using something that has a lot less fat content or doesn't have the stickiness quality of dairy? I mean, how does it work?
Well, we use coconut milk or coconut cream to substitute the fat, and it has just as much fat as regular milk. So the oat milk is blended with coconut cream, and I just started using coconut milk as a base too. So about 4 flavors are made with coconut milk, and coconut milk is pretty high in fat. So that's how we kind of substitute everything. Luckily, we live in a modern day age where there's a lot of innovative ingredients that mimics the same chemical structure as sugar and eggs, the French way of making ice cream, that can actually replace and substitute some of those traditional flavor ingredients. So perfect timing, again, sometimes you get lucky and you find these ingredients, but there are unique ingredients and they're not as bountiful as, granulated sugar or, we use inulin versus eggs or a special stabilizer. And that's why the cost of goods is higher than traditional ice cream.
Good question. Next over there. What's your name? Craig.
Hopefully I say this in the right way, but when you look at your background, right, of coming out of fashion, which you look at as image, right, and in many ways you can decide whether it's the quality, right, or why people are wearing it, right? When you look at how wonderful your imaging is, and then you look at the timing you were at Erewhon, right, where the Hailey Bieber drink, right, people are willing to pay $21, right, for that. Where do you think is most important? Meaning, are you kind of torn between, given your fashion background, the imaging and making it about just the experience and less about the flavors? Meaning, how do you balance those two things? Because, right, you can go one of two directions. So which do you think is most important to you, the imaging or the experience, or actually the underlying flavor and quality of your product? And how do you find yourself navigating that?
Good question.
I'm going for both. I started with the product itself. I wanted to make sure what's inside the packaging is just as good as the outside. So it took about 2.5 years and well over 100 recipes to nail down the recipe. I'm constantly still tweaking every now and then to find the perfect balance. But the product is really good on the inside. And when we launched with Erewhon, I wasn't ready with the packaging or the branding. We just did an all-white packaging, and I slapped the gold foil logo on it, and that was it. I didn't have time to think about it. I didn't want to go in one direction, then change another and have to rebrand it. So we're just going to go simple, minimalist, and let's just put it up there. And it worked to our advantage because when you're going against the grain and you walk in and you see a big block of white, and then everything else is super colorful and crazy and loud, you kind of just zero in and it's like, what's that one? And it worked. And the only reason why I chose to pick colors, because when I was doing a demo, someone ran up to me, he's like, love your product, but I wish it was slightly different color because I grabbed the wrong flavor. When I got home, it wasn't the flavor I wanted because it was all white. And I thought, okay, I'm going to do very subtle ombre coloring. But then over time, it's gotten a little bit more colorful. And I decided also on the packaging was decided because I was at the time a one-woman show, and you had to go do the demos in all 10 locations. And I couldn't go every month to 10 Erewhons and give out samples. So part of being in luxury is that packaging is a very, very big deal and a very big component to the branding. And I decided that I wanted to come up with a packaging which didn't require me to be there. So it was kind of for practicality reasons too. And in order for me to not be there, it had to jump off the shelf. And I decided to go with a very different packaging, and I wanted to look like beauty products in the freezer, to the point that it would intrigue customers when they walk by that they're gonna buy for the packaging as their first go, which actually eventually worked. So I stopped doing demos. I'll go to the openings of, like, the new opening in Manhattan Beach. I'll go there to do that. But then after that, I don't really have to go. And that has kind of paved the way for the brand, because it's now become iconic to the brand, the packaging. So people buy it for the packaging first. So I've kind of caused that intrigue to get someone to taste it, but I knew that the product had to be just as good as the inside as it is on the outside. So I kind of answer your question. Okay. It has to be like the Hermes of ice cream. You know, Hermes goes both. The packaging has to be just as beautiful as the product, and vice versa. To justify the price, you know, it has to be both. We are now, I think they're $17 at Air One now. So for us to justify it, had to make sure it looked great, it tastes great, and you know, you feel great eating it. It has to tick all the boxes at that point.
Thank you for the question. I think we have time for one more. Does anyone else have something they want to ask? Yeah, go ahead.
You had some, I'm Matt, by the way. Hi, nice to meet you. You had some really good reflections of your time at Amazon that you couldn't see because you were in the thick of it. You're in the thick of Lavender and Truffles right now. What are you hoping that you'll be able to reflect on as you evolve into the next phase of your career?
I think Amazon is the place where I accepted the change, because I don't think I did in life. But they have, their philosophy is, you know, you get to you finish your Q1 and you're up like 50%, you know. And they don't say, congratulations, pat yourself on the back. The conversation in our meetings, like, we did great, 50% up from last quarter. What can we do to be better? That's always the conversation. What can we do to improve more? What we can do better for next quarter? It's always the next game. They don't just settle for, great, 50%, let's go out for a coffee or a drink or a dinner. They're just always looking on to next quarter. And to do that, you have to evolve, and you might have to change a few things. So now being in my own company, it's the same mentality. Great, we opened up 10 accounts. What can we do better? You know, do we get another 10 more? Can we evolve that partnership to something deeper? It's always looking to the next corner.
Thank you. I think last thing here, Alicia, just for those, we know you're fundraising, but how do we support you? How do we find Lavender and Truffles? Can you just share those logisticals, please?
Sure. I mean, our shop is right there. So if you guys are members or you live in the area, we're open just Thursday to Sunday. We are available online, so it can ship to 48 states. And on our website, we list all the partnerships that we have for all the grocers, the restaurants, and hotels. And soon we're going to start loading up all of our partners in New York. So we're focused on the Hamptons, and you'll find our products out on the East Coast too.
Amazing. Thank you, Alicia. Thank you, everyone, for being here.
Thank you.
And we'll be around for the next couple of moments if you want to come up, ask some questions off the mic. Thank you.